Hello and welcome to our 122nd episode of the Gutenberg Changelog. In today's episode, we will talk about Gutenberg 21.8 and WordPress 6.9, what we already know about it. And I'm your host, Birgit Pauli-Haack, curator at Gutenberg Times, co-contributor on the Word open source project, and I work as a developer advocate for Automatic. I'm thrilled that I finally have Beth Soderberg join me on the show. Beth is the CEO of Bethink Studio, a special web design and development agency in Alexandria, Virginia, in the US. Beth, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you. Welcome to my morning. I'm doing great. Good to see you.
Yeah, so I tried to recollect how we actually met, or we met over the last few years, and I think it was the first time we met at the WordCamp New York in 2019.
Think that's right-ish. I definitely have eaten tacos late at night at WordCamp New York,
Okay,
so that tracks.
yeah,
And I
and
definitely met you sometime before the pandemic.
mhm,
So I'm not sure exactly,
yeah.
but that sounds about right. And then I know we had lunch at WordCamp US when it was in San Diego.
Oh, okay, nice. Oh, right. We had this
There was,
women,
yeah,
so there was a group of women kind of
right.
coming together
Yeah.
that, yeah, yeah.
I saw a table of women, and if I see a table of women at a conference like that, I'm going to sit down at it. And you did exactly the same thing.
Nice.
But so, but that's the first time I saw you after the pandemic for sure.
Yeah,
And
yeah. And
yeah.
in between, I think we did together the WP Blog Talk virtual
Hmm.
conference that was organized by Automatic, but there were
Yep.
a lot of community members in there talking about Gutenberg and the stage of it and all that.
That was when I realized that I don't like presenting at virtual conferences in front of audiences that you can't see.
Hmm. Yeah, it's
I think
interesting.
I'm good with Zoom because you can get some feedback,
Hmm.
but the speaking into the void was, I don't know. It could have also been that I wasn't speaking to anyone in real life at the time, so it felt extra weird.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
No, I get it. It is the pre-recording and then just be there for the live part of it. But we
This
had a
that
great live discussion there.
Yeah, it was fun, and we actually did the presentation live. And I
Okay.
think that could be why
Hmm.
later things were recorded, because it was a really weird experience. It was very strange because you knew you were live. You had no idea if even your audio was working, but you just kind of had to keep talking. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the least feedback I've ever had from anything I've ever spoken at.
Hmm.
And I think the not even being sure that the technology was working part, like even that level of feedback wasn't there, and threw me
Hmm.
off. It was
Yeah.
fun, and hopefully next time I do something like that, it will be recorded in advance. So,
Yeah. But it was a good talk because it was kind of together with Ellen Bauer, and you had
mhm.
15 minutes, Ellen had 15 minutes, and I think Bill Erickson was there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
There were three of us.
yeah, and every one of you kind of took a different take on the blog themes.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that was really interesting to kind of, well, we started out in 2020 with that. Yeah, now
Right.
it's 5 years later, and we finally connected again at WordCamp US because I
Yep.
made it there again.
I know. I was excited to see you. And I think, yeah, I mean, doing that talk was interesting. I think there's still some divergence around how people are building and how people are utilizing the tools. That set of like 15-minute talks was a really good microcosm of that,
Hmm.
because each one of us had been actively building with all of the new tools and had a slightly different approach. I still think there's some divergence there, but we're starting to see some patterns of like actual best practices with the new tools, which I
Yeah.
think is really exciting. And also, it's fun to sort of invent on the fly, like, okay, how should this work? As the people who really are using it with clients right away, what is the standard we want to set? What
Hmm.
does and doesn't work? And I think that was still in a time period where we were learning so much about what you could do, what the restrictions were. I know in a lot of what we're going through today, there's like little tiny changes that
Yeah.
are end up being so impactful, right? Like my favorite thing I hated from that time period was It could have been a little earlier, I don't remember, but originally you couldn't set text colors on lists.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Stuff like that where
hmm
it's
hmm
so small, but when it's missing, it's a big problem. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that there a lot of work has been put into having consistent design tools for each block that you can control through the theme JSON file and then make it really a unique experience or unique design for your clients. Yeah, I definitely, that's definitely something, yeah, where you don't, oh, I can't do the fonts. Yeah, well, I guess I need to do a variation of it. So
Yep.
there was a lot of coding done to kind of get around those restrictions. How do you feel about kind of ripping out all this additional around coding now that certain things are in core and that are available?
I
Does
feel
that kind of trip you
great
up
about
about?
it. I feel great about it. And there's not that much I need to rip out. Some of that is because of how I've built things over time.
hmm
Some of that is because things like the tab block, which I am so excited about. I know it's not ready and all that, but I have a few sites where I have random solutions for that, but I've got them compartmentalized. So pulling them out and putting in something new that makes more sense is going to be easy
Yeah.
because I know, like, especially something like the tabs, they don't appear that often.
hmm
And the other thing with stuff like that, you can just search the database for the machine name of block to find where you're using it. I do that a lot. And sometimes, I don't know, I ripped Jetpack out of a site recently because it was only being used for slideshows in like 6 blog posts.
hmm
There was no need for it. And it might have been more than 6, but still, this is a major publishing website that has thousands of posts.
hmm
They didn't need Jetpack sitting on there doing this like very minor task. And so that's one of my tactics for sure. When I'm
Yeah.
going to rip something out, people forget that you can search easily, not even in the database. You can use the WordPress search to
Right,
find stuff.
for the posts, yes. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I do.
So,
Yeah, kind of. You can kind of put the blog name in there and then see which posts use what block. Yeah. Especially the third-party blocks when you find out,
mm-hmm.
okay, I have now three query blocks and
Right.
core blocks, and why am I doing this to me?
Right.
Yeah,
And I've always been pretty conservative about what I'll add.
yeah.
So I think that's part of why it's not super daunting to me,
hmm
because if I can make it work with the tools that exist, I will.
Yeah.
I'm not going to over engineer it just because I could. And that makes it easier to clean up long term.
So I think the last big feature that was introduced to theme development was the section styles, style variation in one, and then the section styles, the smaller things, and block styles, now that you can edit them in the global styles. How much do you use about that? Is that something that comes up quite a bit in your work or?
I use them a lot. So I want to give people, especially when you're dealing with semantics, I want to give people the ability to have something look the way they want it to look, but also be semantically correct. So, especially with things like headings, right? Having tooling that's easy for an end user to understand, to say, this should be an H2, but I would like it to look like an H4
Mm.
without making it an H4 is a game changer. It improves SEO, it improves accessibility,
Yeah.
it keeps everything cleaner. And so that kind of tooling, I think, when used strategically, can really help. When used randomly, you're just going to confuse people. But
Mhm.
um, I think,
Well, aren't we in the business of confusing people?
yeah, sometimes, right?
All right. Yeah, no, it's interesting to. So, are you using also site styles variations or just section styles or block styles?
Heavily
Theme.
using block styles,
Okay.
not so much the whole site variations
hmm
yet.
Yeah.
There hasn't, it's again, it's like you want to use the right tool for the right use case.
hmm
And
Yeah.
that
Normally,
hasn't,
you don't want to change how the site looks.
yeah, there's only, it's, it, you kind of need like a site within a site
hmm
to make that required.
hmm
And the only thing like that I've been building lately is a voter guide that's like
hmm
within a site. but the voter guide has all the same styling as the rest of the site because it's supposed to match.
Yeah, right,
So
right. Yeah,
you don't need
yeah.
it.
I've always felt that the style variations are more for theme product developers that want to give more options to
Hmm.
modify the theme. But for agencies, I didn't see that there is a whole lot of use cases for them. I might be
No.
wrong, but yeah, but you're kind of confirming a little bit my bias here.
Yeah, I don't know. I look at anything that's coming in that's new. I look at it in terms of strategic utility. And there's
Mhm,
a bunch of stuff that is super cool, but it's just not necessary for my clients,
mhm.
right? Like it's not the use case for that.
Yeah.
But for somebody else, that could really help. And I've had a
Mhm,
few where you end up building this random microsite within the site because some weird reason why they need it. And like that's really what you would use that for.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
happen all
Mhm,
that often.
mhm.
So
Yeah, do you apply section styles to your patterns? Yeah,
keeps
so
things
that,
cleaner.
yeah.
Hmm.
And you give them design choices and they don't have to spend time with kind of reorganize their design just because they want to have a pink background or a yellow background or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I restrict color palettes
Of course, yeah.
and because we don't want anything looking like, you know, we're in some sort of sci-fi movie.
GeoCities.
Yeah.
I'm
But I
dating myself
also,
now.
it's okay. I told the checker at the grocery store the other day about how I worked at Blockbuster in high school and how that dated me, but it was a good job because you could had to walk around to put the movies back. So I also use a lot of synced and partially synced blocks to achieve design consistency.
Hmm.
So paired together because that I have found is really good for editorial teams where you can give them a style guide. And usually I make a page on the inside of the site that's just privately published so that they can see, like, okay, we have these patterns to work from. And, this is the human part. You have a discussion about how, yes, you can do all these things, but you should use these things that we've all agreed upon
Hmm.
that follow the
It's like that, yeah.
style guide.
Yeah.
So
Well, it also makes production much, much faster when you don't have to make those design decisions. They're already there. And then, yeah.
exactly. And you don't have to train people. I mean, the number one thing I see real clients, real site administrators doing weirdly with formatting is inconsistent vertical spacing.
Okay. Yeah.
The tooling is there to make it consistent,
Hmm.
but people don't, even if you train them, they're like, wait a minute, do I pick it at the fourth hash or like which setting is it again? And does that look, and like, as much as I can look at spacing on anything and know if it's wrong,
Hmm.
many people cannot.
Oh, no, no. Yeah.
And so
That's a skill.
it's a skill.
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
And many people really, and I found that like syncing those patterns that way
hmm
and locking down some of that basic stuff that like you don't want your end user to be thinking about how much space they need below something.
hmm Yeah.
Like that's not what they should be ever actively thinking
hmm
about. So that's how I have
hmm
approached that
Yeah. Yeah.
so far.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. Have you taken a survey of how often your clients actually use the spacer block? Because I found that WordPress.com, that's one of the top 5 blocks used.
I have not, but now I'm curious. And some of them, I mean, you definitely have some where it's used more than it should be. But I think that we've avoided some of that. And some of it is what we've been able to do recently, right?
Hmm.
A few years ago, you had to use it if you were going to get any consistency at all
Hmm.
across things. But I think sometimes the patterns and the pattern syncing, that type of thing has dramatically reduced the need to use a spacer block,
hmm
which is
Yeah.
great because the spacer block is so annoying on mobile.
Yeah, that's one thing. It's also you cannot rip it out when when you redesign the site or something like that, it's gonna be there in your content. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I have a similar dislike as it sounds of the spacer block, but when you shrink a screen down, suddenly you get wildly different vertical spacing on mobile.
Hmm.
And for the average person, there is not a straightforward way to make it not do that.
Hmm. Yeah.
You have to know how to write a workaround for yourself to make
Hmm.
it
Yeah.
work. And that's not great. So,
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's good to know. So, before we head into our usual sections, is there anything else that you would like to tell people who have not yet done the jump into block themes where they should do it?
I think that it's a scary jump.
Hmm.
And I have always been an early adopter of the new tooling. And so I look at something like that and it freaks me out a little bit. And then I'm like, well, why not? And I just push myself through. And I know that I have the liberty of doing that because I've been working independently for almost 10 years. So I am in a lot of ways in control of what is and is not allowed in my environment. I've talked to a few folks who they understand how it's working and they personally buy in, but their employer does not.
Okay. Yeah.
And so for those folks, I think building up your skill set with your personal site or a personal project so that you can advocate for different things internally. It's very hard to advocate for something that you haven't done and that you don't have hands-on experience with, but the ability to spin up a little like MVP demo of, hey, this is how this would solve a problem that we have systemically
Hmm.
is really how you sort of gain permission in those sorts of environments. There's some really good resources out there on learning how to do this. I think that they are much harder to find than they used to be.
Hmm.
When I was first learning
Hmm.
how to code, it was much easier to find like beginner entry level stuff to like level yourself up. And now I think fewer people are creating it.
Hmm.
And I think it's harder to find just because of how it's labeled. Everything starts to look the same because it's all named the same.
Yeah.
But I think giving yourself the challenge to, even if you don't understand everything, listening to a podcast like this, listening to a talk that you're finding online, having it playing in the background, like it does seep in to how you think about it. And what will happen is that later you'll encounter the same subject again and you'll be like, oh, wait, that's what they were talking about. And that's how you start to connect the dots when you're
Hmm.
learning anything new. And I think the idea that you're going to get somebody who has been building themes the classic way, building themes that are heavily reliant on advanced custom fields, something like that, to just magically one day pick up a whole new set of tools with a whole different way of thinking and be completely comfortable from the get is like ludicrous. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But, giving yourself the ability to slowly absorb it because it is a different way of thinking. It's a completely different way of thinking about how to structure the theme.
Hmm.
And for me, that has been the hardest part to learn. Once I figured it out, it's been great.
Hmm.
But of course, it's always the hardest thing to figure out a new way of thinking. When you say it like that, it's so obvious, but I think people really get down on themselves about it. And I think
Mm.
really just paying attention, reaching out to folks when you have questions, not being shy about it. What I've figured out over the course of the last, I guess we're almost at 8 years of Gutenberg.
Gutenberg.
Yeah, Gutenberg is a month older than my eldest child. So it is
Yeah.
very easy for me to keep track of how old it is. But we are in a time period where what I have noticed as an early adopter, when I talk to the other early adopters, everybody is making it up.
Mm.
Everybody is inventing their process. Everybody is inventing the quote right way. We're starting to congeal on some common things, but it has been a time of innovation. And so
Totally.
being a little bit afraid to stick your toe in that is so reasonable. And at the
Yeah.
same time, when you think about it that way, it becomes less scary to fail in air quotes, right? Because ultimately, how many light bulbs did Edison make before one worked? Like, it's just, you have to experiment in order to figure out how something works. And I think it is challenging to be mid-career and have to go back to that beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I had this.
yeah.
I
So
feel a
I
certain
think,
confidence that all of a sudden is going away. Yeah,
yeah. So I just think people need to be a little less hard on themselves, push themselves a little, be okay with failing,
and talk to people.
talk to people, just keep going, just keep swimming, as the fish say in Finding Nemo.
Yeah. All right. So you listened here to a very experienced theme developer, and yeah, it's never gonna be easy, but it's you need to start now. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
like what was it, the Chinese proverb, to the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
Yep,
The second best time is now. So it's kind of
exactly.
exactly for that, yeah. So, okay, so we have a few announcements now. We're going a little bit into the Gutenberg changelog method here. We have a few announcements, and they're all calls for testing because we get new stuff, and the testing team is really on top of things. The last week, a call for testing was made for the new template management features that are coming to Core. Which have you checked that out, Beth? On
Yeah.
what's gonna come with that? We talked about it here 2 weeks ago with Ann Kassev, and
Hmm.
it's the tool where you can now have multiple templates with the same slug and of the theme hierarchy, and then activate and deactivate the ones that you want to use or not use. So it kind of puts a new layer in there and gets the user a little bit more in control on how the template management actually works and figure that out in there. Because template management is something WordPress users have never done before
Hmm.
because there was always a developer designer kind of scope, and there was no user interface for it, and now it's here, and the confusion is there, but it's also something that can be learned and can be helped with. Yeah.
I think it's also going to be great for launching changes to live sites where, and how to launch code for Gutenberg is a whole other conversation. But the best practice is to keep your live site database as your database of record, right? And some of what I see with the new template management changes are enabling you to more easily respect that without having weird momentary blips of your content looking bizarre while you're changing something over on a live site. So I think it's going to be, again, another adjustment in how we think about how we work, but ultimately will offer more granular tooling that will allow for the elimination of some of these use cases that haven't always ended up being really strange,
Hmm.
where you're like, yeah, should we put up a maintenance message while we're doing this? Because everything is going to look bizarre for the next 20 minutes.
Hmm.
That kind
Yeah.
of stuff. I think it's
Yeah.
going to be good.
It's really good. Yeah. Yeah. And the first version is going to be not perfect and probably have some bugs, but that's why the call for testing is there. So I leave the link in the show notes for you so you can start testing and share your experience with it, and also share what still confuses you or what didn't work or where you thought it would work but it didn't. It's definitely something to the conversation needs to happen, and if you're not sure what to do, come into the in the WordPress Slack into the outreach channel, and there are a lot of people there that will help you figure that out. So if you don't know if it's a bug or you're not doing it right, I know that's often kind of that, well, with new things,
Mm-hmm.
did I get this right or is it not working? And most people, and I'm one of them, I default to, okay, I'm not doing this right. What's happening? And there are
Yeah.
two more calls for testing. One is on the ability to hide blocks, which is kind of the first iteration of a blocks visibility kind of plugin
Mm-hmm.
idea that you can hide and show blocks conditionally. Right now it's only on and off, or hide and show. So you could have a block in the editor, but you hide it on the front end, but because you're still working on it, or you don't wanna, you wanna put it in there so your editor know about it, but it's not gonna be pushed to the show version until a certain date or until a certain sale happens or something like that. The instructions for the call for testings are really good. And they also show you with little videos how it's supposed to work to kind of offset my, am I doing this right or not idea. And the other one that I wanted to point out in this podcast is the accordion block calls for testing. That seems to be really settled. Came in 20.5, I think, and had some iterations, especially for those of you who started styling it. You need to double check your references because the name changes in between for the panel and for the items and all that. So call for testing for accordion block and what you can do with it. Have you experimented with the accordion block?
I'm really excited about it.
Awesome.
This is one of the ones that I've been dreaming of for years. It's one of the ones where I had an external plugin where like the only reason I was using the external plugin was because I needed accordions. The detail block is sort of an approximation, but it's not the same semantically speaking. So I'm excited about this one. This one and tabs are my two that have been a thorn in my side for years.
Yeah, I'm also, well, we can talk about the other blocks that are supposedly come or at least been worked on for core, even if they don't make it into 6.9 in a later date. There's this new AI feature out there. It's called Telex, which is automatic block building AI. And there are a few designers and developers that have actually done some great experimentations with that. One is Tammy Lister. She has started a challenge, kind of the Blocktober, meaning every day in October she will build a new block with Telex. And I'll, of course, share the site in the show notes. But there are really, she started out with a kind of reaching back into history of computers and started out with an ASCII Tetris game. And that's when my afternoon, when I uploaded, my afternoon was shot because I got addicted to Tetris again. Yeah. Did you do any experimentations with that?
Nope. That one, I mean, I know about it. I
Mhm.
know about Tammy's Blocktober. I'm paying attention, but I don't have time to just play with it right now.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's kind of,
Letting other
yeah,
people do that.
I look at what other people do. Yeah, and there's Marko Ivanovic. He's a designer at Automatic. He has did some animated icon blocks. Yeah, they were kind of sparkling and all that. And then he also created a post-it note block where you can put post-its on your site with an image and with a background, gradient background. So pretty cool to look at. So, and then there was Jeff Paul from 10up. He actually also created a game of Pong, Pong block. That's kind of
Oh.
the tennis kind of back and forth where you need to up. And it was just, and he has an easy, medium, and hard. That was another afternoon. I tried to figure it out. Yeah, Juan Margarito, he created a mermaid diagram, which is actually a markdown diagram, and then you put the diagram code in markdown, and then it kind of creates a diagram with arrows back and forth. Yeah, it's kind of a flow diagram if you want to. So that was really interesting to see. Yeah, anyway,
That is
so I
also
just
fun.
thought, yeah, check it out if you want to play around with it. It's telex.automatic.com, automatic with double T, the second T. Yeah. Okay. So now we come to the heart of the show, which is what's released. And before we head into Gutenberg 20.8, I wanted to let everybody know WordPress 6.8.3 is out. It's a security issue. It's a security release fixing two security issues. And if you haven't updated yet, please do. We wait. Go and update. There was the two issues were mentioned in the release post. One was on data exposure issues, and the other one was a cross scripting vulnerability for the nav menus, which has been fixed, and you're in a secure environment again. But don't forget to update. Yeah. Any thoughts?
Always update.
I
When this
think.
I'm of the camp. I always update on the security releases right away. And then major releases, I always wait and see what happens
How long do
and
you
then do
wait?
it.
How long
I
do you wait?
usually I usually wait until a point release has come out.
Okay.
That's usually the trigger. But sometimes it's really stable and we're like, well, I guess there's no point release and it's been 3 weeks. So um I do the same thing with updating like my iPhone.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm, as much as I am interested in technology, I am also somebody who just recently started using mobile deposit for checks. I'm skeptical.
Well, I think that makes out an early adopter to decide where to early adopt, yeah, and where to be cautious, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. My
That's
risk
good.
tolerance is very high for certain things and
Hmm.
very low for other things.
And if it changes my work environment that I need to retrain my muscle memory, I'm opposed to any change. But I recently had to change my Mac, updated, and they fixed the bug. And that's the problem with bug fixes. Yeah, if you have for years known about a workaround and the muscle memory is in, you hate that bug fix that fixes that once
Hmm.
and for all. So kind of, yeah. Well, anyway.
Yep. That's a whole other conversation. Moving on.
Thank you. So Gutenberg 21.8 is the second last before 6.9 beta. There's one more coming that's a 21.8, 9, of course, and that's coming on October 17. So we are recording this on October 8th, and next week we have the last Gutenberg release before 6.9 beta comes, which means bug fixes, yes, new features, no, from that point on forward to get into core. Gutenberg 21.8 had 118 PRs by 47 contributors, and 5 people were first-time contributors. Congratulations, you got your merge done. That's fantastic because I can see that the first one is always a little tricky, getting it past the reviewers for Gutenberg. We start with the enhancements to the block comments. Block comments is a feature that creates a commenting methods for each block in your editor so you and others can add comments to blocks and have an editorial kind of process going. It's a lot of a lot of PRs made it into that. But
Hmm.
the first one that I wanted to point out is a discussion field with trackbacks and comment status aggregated for the post page quick edit. So, in the quick edit are there commenting places. Quick edit is not the quick edit in the WP admin. It's a quick edit in the design. But that's actually not the block commenting thing.
Yeah, this is hard to contextualize even looking
Yeah,
at the
PR, right?
ticket. Yeah, the PR. I think ultimately it's unifying. It's one of those things that's unifying design across components to make things more consistent no matter where you find them.
So when you have the new design view, what was missing that you were able to manage trackbacks and comments. So it's not the feature that we that I just said. It's just getting on par with the previous WP admin kind of thing, especially for pages. The posts haven't been included yet in these new designs, but for pages definitely. And if there's a post experiment in Gutenberg where you can have the post view also in the new design view as the site editor, and that's where this actually comes to pass. So that is kind of labeled wrong in that changelog, but that's okay. We can handle that. Do you want to do the next one?
Sure. So displaying a message when there is no related block, which is the most logical thing you could do with commentary that has no source attached to it. So
Anymore. Anymore.
anymore, right? So again, it's giving context to something so that your actual conversations make sense. And basically, what it's doing is just adding a little message that says, hey, your original block was deleted, so that somebody reading through it understands, and also gives you the ability to. Part of why I like this one is because you're going to end up with people who, in collaborating with each other, are going to remove things. And you want to have a record of the conversation for editorial purposes, but understanding what has happened is a key part of creating that record. So
Yeah, definitely. You want to have a record of the decision-making process for certain things. Yeah, the other one that I wanted to point out is that it now shows the dates of the comments in a more human readable part, like 30 minutes ago or 2 hours ago or 3 days ago. So you get a little bit more relation to the time stamps of that. I think there was an option to how to do this, but I'm not quite sure that you can switch it on and off. But if not, no, it's not. It's the first iteration, and there are no options.
I think that's coming later.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's known that there will be something like that needed.
Yep. And then the highlighting of the related block. Again, a lot of these changes are improving context indicators. And so, this just gives you a clearer sense of what you're connecting to and which thing you're actually talking about with the comments. So
I'm just going to look through if we missed something. No, we're going to go right into the block library section. And there's a ton of PRs that actually work on the accordion blocks. There's also in the bug fix sections. But I think the most prominent stuff is more like the term description block with the context support. So that if it's in a template or in an archive template, that the term description block is more, you can use it in patterns, like you can do post title and query title for that. Yeah, the term description block is something that's a little bit of a, I have seen people that are quite adamant that they need the block editor in the category description section for editing the description because they wanted to make it more, they design it a little bit or make it a little bit more versatile. That's quite interesting because you also can now create a page with all the features that you want on that for a particular category and then just have a query loop on that category displayed on it. So to get around that need to have the term description be a block editor or something like that.
yeah, I had never thought about that before because
Which
theoretically
part?
you always could do the latter,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But you had to have a certain level of technical skill and knowledge to do that. The idea of adding block support to that description opens up possibilities for folks who are not as technical to make modifications in that
Mm-hmm.
presentation of the term pages. I don't know. I could go either way there. I
Yeah.
could also create massive, I can see this going very wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think
Um,
that's why nobody touched it for now.
I think it goes so, that's a new concept to me, but I don't know. My gut says no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and then we get a new block. It's the time to read block. And now it has been in the Gutenberg plugin for ages, similar to the table of content block.
Yep.
But they were to get it into core, there were always kind of missing things or quirkinesses that weren't dealt with. And the time to read had massive accessibility objections because it only had one time that it takes to read a block. Not everybody has that reading skill or is on that level. Like a lot of people are English as a second language. They don't read so fast, or dyslexia is pretty, yeah, it's out there and they don't read that fast. And so it kind of makes them feel bad about not reading in that 15 minutes kind of thing. what they're doing now is kind of offering a range option. It says it takes 1 to 5 minutes or something like that, and which I feel is kind of, even for someone who is fast reading but tired, is a good indicator, that how long it's going to actually take. And
Yeah.
then they added also a word count to it.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I mean, there are word count plugins out there, word count blocks plugins out there. Say that 15 times fast. But I think having a core block that also offers that option is really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
I
sorry I
agree.
didn't bold that, but I wanted to talk about it.
No, I agree. I think it's a kinder way to deal with the problem
Mm,
because you're giving people enough information to very quickly self-assess without shaming them.
yeah. So the next one is part of the data views section. Actually, it's the data forms package, and there's now support for certain form elements, validation in the data forms package. So if you use that as a for your plugin or your settings pages, you now get help from the packages that drive that. I think it's an enhancement for extensibility for sure.
In the block editor, section block multi-selection, disabling transforms and inspector controls.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So when you select multiple blocks, you still get sometimes the options that you can transform them.
Mm-hmm.
And for paragraphs, a series of paragraphs, I like it because then you can transform them to list
Right.
views. But if you have a mixture of selected blocks, you don't need transforms or inspector controls. You just probably want to move it
Mm-hmm.
or move the selection. Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
it's a good way to not confuse people.
Right. And that's a good example of a tiny change from a end user perspective that probably won't be noticed, but will reduce friction for people. All right. In global styling, adding a reset button to our background controls panel. Hooray.
Hooray, you don't have to unselect stuff. Yeah,
Yep.
just click on things and you make it all go away. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
And then making the additional CSS UI less prominent, which is great because the less random CSS everywhere, the better.
Yes, and well, it's I totally agree with that. And that's also the justification why they want to put it so they're gonna hide it again. It was hidden on the left-hand side of the global styles or styles panel. You
Mhm.
always could edit it on the right-hand side when the styles panel, yeah. So well, sooner or later we probably need to decide if we want to use the left-hand side or the right-hand side for the styles features. But it now is going to be in the ellipse menu in the header of the styles section. So it says add additional CSS as a menu item on top. So you are not gonna be, well, it was there and then there wasn't there. So where is it? A kind of
Right.
thing, a situation. It ended up in the ellipse menu on top of the screen.
Block bindings. I love block bindings.
Yeah, there's an experimental feature there
Yeah.
to support block attributes from the server side. I haven't completely read through it. I'm not quite sure I understand that, so I would need to go back to the developers and say, what's the use case and why you're doing it, kind of thing.
Yeah. I think
Did you get on something?
I would have to clarify, but my understanding of it is the big thing with block bindings is like which things are supported and which things aren't supported, and how that is communicated is improved
Mhm.
from doing this.
Yeah, doing
Is
it server side.
the sort of the nugget of truth there. But I think anything like that, I know it's experimental, but I making block bindings easier and more accessible for people to use. Anything that helps that is a
Mm.
good thing.
Yeah, I think there are two areas where they come from. One is to make block bindings available for more than 4 blocks, which has
Mm-hmm.
been the case until now. That's one thing, but also to increase extensibility and have not only blocks use the block bindings, but also whole features use the block bindings for external things like the the remote block plugin by WordPress VIP or so. Yeah, they also use block bindings to identify the data that comes in and put it into the block editor. But I think it's hard to bring the server side and the client side together with the same information. And this one will have the server side be the moment of truth, no, the source of truth for block bindings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a late edition. I'm not sure it's going to make it to 6.9. I'm skeptical though. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Write mode. Try adding content roles to navigation blocks is the name of the PR,
PR.
which I think is delightfully named. And I even the way that this is written is pretty great. I wanted to see how far we can go with just adding content roles to nav link in some menu blocks, given the improvements to content only logic we've had. And then it references another PR.
Yeah.
The next sentence is, I think it's working better now. Whoever this contributor is, I love your writing. Tell the machines.
Oh, that's
So
Bryson.
fun times, but I think it'll.
Isabel Bryson is that. Yeah, she's been on the podcast before, and she's actually worked also on the grid layouts. And yeah, she works for Automatic on a team. And yeah, I think the try part is okay, we experiment with things. So that's when it says try. And then there's also add is kind of definitely need to fix this or add this feature, or fix means fix this bug. Yeah,
Right.
so they have these prefixes on their PRs, and the try thing is, yeah, let's try it out and see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. But this one, it looks cool. People should check it out. Components, the text area component, adding a default resize vertical rule just to make things more make sense visually so that you can move stuff around the way you need to.
Yeah. And you can control the vertical size of things. That's always a good thing.
Yeah.
And then the other component, PR, is actually adding storybook examples for the fields package. So there's more documentation there for the plugin developers who want to use that. Also, of course, for the core developers who are going to use the fields package for their work.
Patterns. We have a change to the block inspector, adding a content tab for section blocks that displays content only descendant blocks. So similar to the existing styles tab, but for content.
Yeah. And it's up until now, it lists the blocks that can be edited in a section pattern or in a content only block, but that's all part of the write mode. And we will see which part of it actually will come into 6.9. But I think it's very helpful for content creators who use a pattern to just see the pieces that you can edit and not be confused with any styling of that, even if it's only the section styles. And from the PR before and after, you can see that the little water drop that's in the block toolbar actually gives you a way to browse through the styles for this particular section. So it's not taking anything away. It's just kind of making it clear where the information is going to be for you.
Yeah. I think for anyone who might be confused about what we're talking about, look at the PR. The screenshots will help you.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's a little bit hard on the podcast to make things come to life in a visual component.
Clear.
Yeah.
The screenshots make it make sense if you're confused by what we just said.
And the PR we're talking about is 71714. The next one is an easy one, but it's definitely something to talk about for Black Friday and all the WooCommerce stuff. There is now a WordPress gift icon available for content creators and developers, so you can use that. It comes from a WooCommerce team, but they contributed to core, so anybody can use it. The next thing I want to point out was the block API has now the block visibility control support and the UI. That's the part where the underlying architecture for the hide and show of blocks. I think it is. And that also is the foundation for when you later on we will have the conditional hide and seek. No, hide and show. When you want to say, okay, I want it for logged in users or not, I want it for people who come from Twitter or not. These kind of conditionals, they're not yet in there. For that, you still need the block visibility plugin by Nick Diego. So I think we have one more. No. Yeah, there's an accordion block also in write mode. We hide the add button in write mode, so you can't add an additional accordion block in write mode. But I'm not quite sure that's particularly helpful for a content creator, but time will tell.
Yeah, that could go either way.
Yeah, it's a 50-50 kind of thing.
I don't know.
You do it right for 50% of people, and the others are gonna hate you for that. And then one bug fix I wanted to point out, there is was a bug in the pattern override. Some users might have found it, is that editing was allowed on non-enabled override blocks, which kind of defeated the purpose, but it's now fixed. So, and there's another experiment. I don't know how that comes about, but the PR definitely has some interesting conversations there, is allow registering PHP only blocks. What do you
Yeah,
say for that?
I say,
I
I think
think, yeah,
this is gonna be so much bigger than it sounds.
yes. I,
Because basically what you're doing is you're enabling developers to create blocks using only PHP. So you're opening up the can of worms about who knows PHP and who knows JavaScript, and are we gatekeeping by moving everything to JavaScript and blah, 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 blah. But then you're also changing the structure in a way that might make things less portable between projects.
mm,
So I don't know.
well, it's definitely an experiment.
That's true. I think, and one of the things I have noticed, there is a developer on my team that I have been mentoring for years and really started learning WordPress specifically post Gutenberg. And what's fascinating about watching her is that she struggles with some of the traditional ways of doing things,
Yeah.
but can do them the new way, right? So for somebody like that, this might be terrible, and it just becomes a context thing about what you know and how you've been progressing with different skills along the way, if you've completely forgotten PHP or various things. So I don't know, I think this one is going to be much bigger deal than I think it
Yeah,
looks.
I think so too. And there will be restrictions to that. And I think the documentation will show that because it actually uses something, the server-side render component, that actually was not considered best practice to use until now. And the registration of PHP only blocks will actually use the server render component. So I think there is also something, a little bit of a movement in the core contributing ranks about that. And it definitely needs some more experimenting with it and exploration. But it's in there. One listened, and maybe there's something that can be pushed to the finish line outside the experiments. All the developers out there who were waiting for something like this, go have at it.
Yeah,
Oh,
it'll be interesting to see what people do.
yeah, me too.
All
And
right.
I added the label needs developer documentation, and a project manager on the team also removed it because it's experimental. So
Right.
the developers that create it have some leeway in backwards compatibility. And it's with experimental, it means it's not documented. You cannot build on it. You need to be part of the experiment spirit about it to use it and not rely on it that it's going to be working like that for the foreseeable future. So yeah, it's also that caveat on it. Just wanted to point it out. I just saw that.
That's important because you're going to
Yeah.
have somebody who goes off and builds a whole new thing on it, and then in 2 weeks it'll break.
Yeah. Which, yeah, any plugin developer that built plugins for Gutenberg has been doing kind of living through that for
Yep.
multiple years now. Yeah, so but that's 21.8 release with quite a few new features, and the final release will be today on October 10th. And now we are coming to the section where we talk a little bit about what's in development and discuss. And there are new blocks in the works. And we know this because Matthias Ventura has published that discussion about new blocks that were previously thought about plugin territory, and now quite a few theme developers think that they are held back with their designs if there are not more additional blocks in core, because then now they can style it in their themes and make it available on templates and all that. So Justin Tadlock also did a opinion piece on the Gutenberg Times for it about 4 weeks ago. I can link it again in the show notes, but we are getting new blocks. And the ones that have been merged, they're not entirely out of experiments yet, are Time to Read, and we talked about it because it just was merged. We also talked about the accordion block. That was merged a while ago and still in experiments. But there are two, oh, we also talked about the terms query block that has been merged. But we haven't talked about the breadcrumbs block. And I'm really excited about that because it fills such a need in the template area that people are getting so confused. Where am I? And I have a better map when I have breadcrumbs and all that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
such a useful tool, and I'm looking forward to get that tested. And yeah, watch out on the test team. They're putting some more calls for testing together to get this all in the hands of people who want to help with making it better.
I'm excited about the breadcrumbs block too. That's
So,
another one where I've had to do sort of weird things
mm-hmm,
to
yeah.
make things work over time, and it's going to be nice to not have to do the weird things.
Yeah, I was using Justin Hadlock's
Mm-hmm.
breadcrumbs block that he developed, and he had some thoughts in
Yeah.
this PR on how broad or restricted this first version is going to be.
Yeah.
And I think we're all gonna like it because depending on the context, you can get additional, the breadcrumbs will change. And I really like that.
Yeah, I've used his plugin too. There's I forget which one it was. There's a few independent plugins for breadcrumbs, and my team has run into some weird edge cases of what they will do depending on your content structure. So I think that's part of why the scope of the breadcrumbs block being limited at first makes so much sense, because the complexity of what you're actually trying to do from a templating level, depending on where you are in a site and how your site is structured, can get incredibly complex. And
Hmm.
I don't remember which plugin it was, but we had a site, it may have been the voter guide, actually, the voter guide within the site, that completely killed everything. Like something about the logic of where we were just, and we had to use a different plugin just for that one site to
Hmm.
make it work.
Yeah.
I might have even ended up doing something sort of manual instead. I don't remember, but those plugins have been incredibly useful, but are also prone to edge case weirdness,
Hmm.
because you're
Yeah.
basically generating navigation on the fly. And if you don't know where you are within the structure of the site from a structural standpoint, or if someone has made some odd decisions about where they're putting things or how their hierarchy works, you're going to end up with a really confusing breadcrumb.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And sometimes you don't have the controls to actually make changes. It's just all this
exactly.
black box kind of mystery
Yeah.
meat kind of thing again. Yeah. Yeah, and while we're running a little bit out of time or short on time, I just wanted to mention there's also a dialogue block in the works. There's an icon block in the works. My favorite one is the stretchy text. It sounds so weird, but it actually makes sense. It's text that stretches over a certain content, container, and it's flexible, yeah, depending on how the container works, yeah. So you could do this for hero sections or that. And then here's your Beth's favorite, the tabs block is in the works. And then also my favorite also is a table of contents block because I have these long posts all the time and I want to do the table of contents block. But it had some weird issues. That's why it's not in core yet. And they're trying to figure that out, how that all can be done. It's now attempted to be a dynamic one and allow usage outside of the post or page that is actually referring to. But for instance, in a template, you could put it in a single post, template in the sidebar, and you will always have a table of content for your posts. So I think that's a really good use case. Or for pages, yeah, when you have landing pages or tutorial pages or documentation pages, yeah, that you don't have to fiddle with it while you're creating the content and it's just there in the template.
This is one where my weird workaround for it, there's one of the SEO plugins has a table of contents block built into it. I forget which one offhand, but I've used that before to get this type of functionality.
Yeah.
Because it sometimes you really just need it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so that's it. That is the Gutenberg Changelog 122. Thank you so much for being with me on this, Beth, and it was great to chat with you and talk about block themes and all this good things, block style stuff. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah. Dear listeners, as always, the show notes will be published on the gutenbergtimes.com/podcast. This is 122. I already said that, but if you have questions or suggestions or news you want us to include, send them to changelog@gutenbergtimes.com. That's changelog@gutenbergtimes.com. And I forgot a question for you, Beth, and that is if people want to get in touch with you, what is a good place to do that?
You can find me in the WordPress Slack under my name, Beth Soderberg, and then you can find me at work at our website, which is bethink.studio or bethinkstudio.com. But it's really fun when you can get the non.coms to work with your name. So
yes. All right. So I'll list, of course, all those contact information and more in the show notes. And thank you all for listening. Thank you for being here. And see you when I'll see you back, well, in 2 weeks. Goodbye and have a good time. Bye.